There are habits that make sense. Brushing your teeth, sleeping at night, tying your shoes. And there are habits that make people stop and wonder. Like the man in this video. A man who hasn't eaten anything after 12 p.m. for 8 years. Not for a six-pack, not for a fad diet, and not for some health trend. To the casual observer, that sounds extreme, unusual, almost irrational. To the man himself, it's simply a way of life. But why do some people choose such a strict routine? Today, we dive beneath the surface, not just into the what, but the why. This is a story about control, meaning, and the invisible forces that shape our daily existence. Most of us eat 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner. Sometimes snacks in between. We don't question it. It's what everyone does. We are born into rhythm. Eat, rest, work, sleep, repeat. But habits, the routines that structure our lives, are not always neutral. Some habits confront us, some constrict us, some define us. When someone breaks a pattern that everyone else accepts without thought, it feels like a disruption in the natural order. But what if that disruption reveals truth instead of defiance? Why would someone voluntarily limit themselves? Not for diet, not for physique, not for visible status. That suggests the reason is internal. Humans create rules because we need structure. Animals follow instinct. Plants follow seasons. Humans follow agreement with ourselves. We tell ourselves things like, I don't eat after 8 p.m. I only drink water on weekdays. I stop working at sunset. These are not just decisions, they become identity markers. They whisper, this is who I am. And once a rule becomes part of identity, it feels like character rather than choice. Most people think discipline is about strength, but real discipline is about negotiation between wanting something and choosing not to have it. If you have ever told yourself, I will start tomorrow, I shouldn't eat that, maybe one more episode, you have stood at that negotiation table yourself. The man in this video chose a strict boundary, not because it was easy, not because it was painless, but because it became non-negotiable. Most people make rules they can break. He made one he won't. That alone speaks of something deeper than diet. There is power in rhythm. A train follows tracks. A heart follows beats. A habit follows repetition. And repetition becomes comfort. It sounds odd, but the more you limit your options, the more you free your focus. When your decisions are already made, when your boundaries are set, something inside you doesn't waste energy on indecision. You don't think, what should I eat tonight? Do I break my rule or keep it? That clarity, that absence of internal conflict becomes calm. People chase calm in many ways: meditation, spirituality, solitude. This person found it through a refusal to eat after noon. Our bodies are trained to seek food. Our minds are trained to ask when. When should I eat? when is the next meal? When is enough? By establishing no food afternoon, he rewired the language of those questions. Questions like, what do I want? Became, what do I need? And that shift from want to need is one of the hardest transformations any human makes. Most people spend a lifetime chasing wants without understanding needs. He simply bypassed wants by rule. Humans are rewarded for conformity. Eat at noon, eat at dinner, eat dessert after the meal. Coffee breaks, snacks, celebrations. Everything in society says, consume, enjoy, there is always more. But rules like this, his push against that current. They ask, what do we eat more than we need? Why do we eat more than we need? Why do we seek comfort instead of clarity? What happens when desire stops controlling the fork and the mind takes over? That question is not about food. It's about autonomy, about self-governance. Rules have consequences. They give clarity but demand sacrifice. They make you different, sometimes alone. If you eat when others eat, you belong. If you eat when you are hungry, you follow instinct. If you don't eat when everyone else does, you stand apart. This isn't judgment, it's observation. And the real story is not that he doesn't eat after noon. The story is what happens when a human chooses limitation and lives with it for years. You don't have to adopt his rule. You don't have to change your eating habit. But you must understand this. We are all ruled by invisible agreement. Some are physical, like eating, sleeping, running. Some are mental, like beliefs, fears, expectations. And until you question those agreements, you act by default instead of choice. Boundaries are not walls, they are frameworks. They tell the world, this is how I choose to live. And when a boundary becomes identity, something inside the human shift, not because it's strong, not because it's easy, but because it means saying, I am not simply what happens to me, I am what I choose to be. Maybe waking up tomorrow and never eating afternoon won't be your rule. Maybe it shouldn't be, but there is a lesson in intentional restriction, that most of what holds you back from becoming who you want to be isn't the world. It's the lack of clarity in your internal agreement. When you decide who you are, not by desire, not by habit, but by intent, that's when transformation starts. It starts with a choice, not a craving, not a convenience, but a clear, intentional no, repeated long enough to become identity. And that choice is where freedom begins.